So today is May 14th, 2017, and I feel compelled to talk about a documentary that I recently watched on PBS's Frontline. The story was entitled Poverty, Politics, and Profit, and it covers the efforts of HUD in imaginatively addressing the purported glut of homelessness in the United States. The Department of Housing and Urban Development champions this effort through the issuance of low-income housing tax credits and housing choice vouchers. These two approaches to the claimed affordable housing initiative address the matter through two unique methods. The first, low-income housing tax credits, enables real estate developers to extend below-market rate options to prospective residents who may not otherwise qualify for the Housing Choice Voucher program. In this case, developers can shelter a major share of their incomes up to a specified limit in the development of these properties. The second, the Housing Choice Voucher, enables low-income persons and households to independently negotiate with local property managers and owners to locate housing, a house, an apartment, a townhouse, an in-law unit, a mobile home, or even a single room in a house, wherever they can find opportunity in a given county or region. The Housing Choice Voucher is then directly paid to the landlord each month, while the tenant or several tenants will typically remain responsible for both a small portion of the rent, not to exceed 50% of their gross income, and often their utilities expenses. This documentary goes on to show a number of examples of real estate developers and tenants alike benefiting handsomely, while others, plenty of whom elude the radar screen of the politically inclined surveyor, pay the costs, either directly by way of taxpayer subsidies or discreetly by way of opportunity costs through crowded out investment, or private developers ceding market share to HUD-connected competitors, or middle-class households being priced out of the market by lower to moderate income counterparts, or neighboring communities facing the friction of households that are statistically more likely to mismanage the property or commit crime and domestic disturbances. Some of the heftiest costs are actually shouldered by the unwitting participants in the programs, who are passively influenced by their housing vouchers or below market rate options to delay the realization of their income potential in order to supplement their incomes with a sort of dependency which discourages income growth by reducing government-funded assistance as soon as households exceed 50% of local median income. The housing voucher system, in addition to the array of other dependency programs, effectively subsidizes non-work at the expense of value-added production, where individuals would retain independence and self-sufficiency while acquiring skills and training to propel themselves to yet further opportunities in the future. In many cases, we find participants who are fully aware of their circumstances, who exploit the available vouchers, general assistance, food stamps, Social Security disability benefits, and private third-party institutions or under-the-counter employment opportunities to maximize their gains while minimizing the amount of work that would otherwise be required of them to independently achieve the same ends. In many cases, we find heavily subsidized households that have completely given up on searching for work, even claiming that they have retired despite having virtually no savings to supplement their government-funded arrangements. Schemes like this have become commonplace in the United States, where the housing market has been thrust to the front and center of the U.S. economy, held to high esteem as the bedrock of the entire United States economy. Of course, this became increasingly true, at least on paper, in the aftermath of the crashing information technology bubble, when the United States government launched its campaign to boost home sales and enable the subprime lending practices on which the financial system would then be predicated to mask the underlying losses incurred in the previous market correction. Ironically enough, while most people believe that it is the recession which is to be avoided, it is actually the very reconciliatory process required to purge all of the toxic investment or malinvestments that were pursued during the boom. However, this doesn't make for good politics, and the perceived impatience of the Democratic electorate, a group that seems more eager than ever to have everything now regardless of the costs. The political vending machines are more than happy to placate their audience, to no end, as long as the votes and applause continue to flow in their direction. As you know, there's a brand new form of conventional optimism spanning this country despite recent memory, which I guess doesn't long endure in the face of wishful thinking. I mean, everybody wants to get rich, and nobody wants to wait for it or do the work to actually earn it. This new form of wealth creation isn't new at all. It's precisely the psychological disposition that facilitated the previous housing boom. That idea that housing prices can only go up, that business and development are too good and too solid to come crashing back down to earth. And the pundits are out in droves boasting jobs numbers that double count part-time work, underreported inflation, debt-financed consumer spending, exaggerated GDP growth, and an accelerating U.S. equities market that is highly leveraged upon cheap money, artificially low interest rates, stock buybacks, and record levels of margin debt. And what they're missing above all is the driving income base of manufacturing and industrial pieces that have been swept away at the altar of politically convenient regulations, taxes, and price floors that have priced productive work out of the country and that have concomitantly reduced the average American's appetite for hard work, instead letting them off the hook with easy stay-at-home government subsidies that encourage people to leave the labor force and apply for the full menu of government handouts. This isn't exclusive to the rental market. It's also prevalent in the home buying market, with FHA loans making home buying just that much more doable and more marketable than renting by reducing their annual mortgage insurance premiums and offering mortgage rates below their conventional counterparts and bringing FHA mortgage rates near their lowest levels in history. Essentially, the federal government has embarked upon a mission to subsidize both the rental and home buying markets to achieve so-called affordability. Of course, without any expansion of the housing stock or any relief in the form of freeing up zoned property for development or loosening restrictions against vertical development, prices can go nowhere but up, squeezing middle-income earners out of competition to make way for renters whose manufactured narratives purportedly merit better consideration than their more average neighbors. And moreover, we see further subsidization schemes aimed at encouraging leveraged speculation by buyers who might otherwise pursue rental alternatives or remain at home to establish some savings. Meanwhile, these measures of the Affordable Housing Initiative yield the adverse effects of actually adding further upward pressure to real estate price levels, effectively pricing out even more people and still those prudent homebuyers who are waiting for prices to fall to more sustainable, manageable levels justified by real incomes, not easy credit. And as we add further momentum to the cloudy abstraction of the spoon that feeds the expanding class of dependents, fewer people actually visualize what has taken place. Fewer people realize how these programs are financed. Fewer people feel a sense of gratitude or debt toward the now faceless system that has enabled their cushy standards of living. You see, I've often explained to people that communistic, moneyless societies can function adequately in a microcosm. They are well suited only for those who are completely satisfied with where they are and the social attachments they have forged with their counterparts in that community. And to the extent that this system is successful, it will require close monitoring and strict accountability features, which, perhaps by guilt or some organic sense of indebtedness or servitude, will maintain balanced levels of productivity. Of course, this sort of civilization will not long endure, as there is eventually sure to come an individual whose penchants or curiosities stretch beyond the capacities of his commune. At this time, this individual's devotion to his toil and his valuation thereof will be eroded by the lack of effective compensation returned to him. So now the commune must either allow him to defect or force him to stay. Of course, the former may set a dangerous precedent which may encourage others to soon follow. The latter is a form of tyranny and effectively a form of slavery whereby the fruits of one's labor are thrust into the pot of the commune at the expense of the otherwise free man's ambitions. It is at this moment that the commune begins to dissolve into a dispirited pit of toil, whereby unbalanced satisfaction of wants spurs a desire for overhauling the system. Now, going back to the original impulse for success in the commune, we had the accountability loop. This is the feature principally lacked in the modern dependency system in the United States. Whereas a typical individual may feel some sense of obligation to his friend, his mother, or his father in such a way that he might leverage the gifted funds or the loan by pursuing higher education, a paying occupation, or some style of general personal betterment to somehow return the favor, the systemic borrower or beneficiary sees no face, no human person, no semblance of the labor that enabled the gift. So he's indebted to a faceless machine, and he's convinced himself that his challenges have afforded him this right. And by now, the American dream seems to have been transformed from a picture of personal responsibility and honest work ethic to a scene of discovering the easiest way to get out of work. Future history books will surely frown upon the massive disservice of democracy, as the value of any individual is found not in the power of his community, but in the freedom of every individual.